Today we're going to make one of these canvas floral heart paintings. This is fun for Valentine's Day or any other day that you feel like doing it for. We're going to use this oatmeal deco art acrylic paint for the background instead. First, what we want to do is lay out the heart shape. So we're just going to roughly draw in a heart right on, directly onto the pre-gessoed background. These canvases come pre-gessoed already. You can do another coat if you like, but I did not on this one. So this is just a rough outline of a heart. If you don't know how to draw a heart, you can find templates for that in Google Images. Okay, so hope you can see that all right. Then the next step is to start working on the background. So as I mentioned, I'm using this oatmeal color paint for this background. Okay, so let's start painting in the background, and it doesn't have to be perfect around this heart. We're just using that outline as a rough shape because the hearts that we're going to do on top are going to cover most of that edge, that raw edge off anyways. Next thing we want to do is take that same background color and just start painting a bit of the inside of the heart. And I'm leaving a bit of a margin here around my heart drawing, just so I can still see it. Next, we're going to add just a little bit of shading around the edges of the heart, because with all paintings it's easier to work from the background forward, so that's why we're doing that stuff now. So I'm going to take a little bit of this raw umber. This happens to be Americana brand, doesn't matter the brand, and this raw umber, and I'm going to mix it with a little bit of that pebble color that we used for the background, just to get a little bit of a shade mixed up so I can work that in around the edges of the heart shape. You can also use, this is Liquitex acrylic ink. It's also in raw umber, and it's transparent. It's kind of fun to work with too if you want to mess around with that. So I'm getting my brush pretty wet. Didn't really dab it out a whole lot because I want this to be a fairly thin layer. So just mixing a little bit of raw umber, test it out. And at the moment, I'm just kind of working it in around the edges, and you'll see we'll blend this better in a moment, but I'm just starting it this way. Again, I'm keeping this pretty wet, and I'm trying to work fairly quickly. Okay, now I'm going back to the pebble color, and I'm going to kind of work it in around the edges of where the burnt umber was. It's kind of making it a bit more mottled. A little bit more blended this way. And if you don't have time to work quickly, you can use an extender, paint extender medium, that will extend the drying time of your paint. on my palette, I've already got out some white for mixing the lighter shades. That's right here. Then I also put in some lighter green. This one is called Lush Foliage. It's Decor Art again, and that's this one. I don't have a whole lot of that one left. And this one is Avocado by Americana. That's the one that's here. You can see I already started pouring it here, but I didn't shake it well enough, and so that it separated. So I had to give it a better shake and put in here, but obviously I didn't shake it as well for there either, but that's fine. It's better than this one. So for this part, for the foliage, leaves, greenery, that type of thing, I'm going to use a round brush, and I don't know the size of this. I think it's kind of worn off, and it is a little separated at the edges because this is a fairly old brush, but I use it a lot, and I can't get great edges with it, but I like to lean towards being a little more abstract with my florals and not quite so perfect, so this kind of helps force not having perfect edges by having a beat up brush. So get the brush wet a bit, and I'm just going to kind of mix the two shades together to start with, and just kind of put in a few areas here and there. Some are extending out, as you can see from the heart, not exactly right in it. They can be all over because this is a process of building up layers. I'm doing a few that are just the straight lighter shade, and some that are just the darker, and some that are kind of mixed together. So if you look back at the sample again, I've got pink flowers, yellow, purple, and they're different shapes. So there's this kind, there's kinds that are more like roses, others that, I don't know, don't really have a name as far as I'm concerned. I don't try to make them look like anything specific, just the shapes. So, and even like this kind of little thing, yeah, so that's what I'm going to do for this as well. So I've put out on my palette that you can probably already see. This yellow is called Bright Yellow by Deco Art. This one is called Cotton Candy. It just says acrylic paint. And this one is called Lavender by Deco Art. This one is Fuchsia by Craft Smart. And this one is called Christmas Red by Deco Art. And, yeah, this one is quite old, so you can see it's pretty bubbly there. It doesn't really matter the brand, and it doesn't matter the exact shade. You can do whatever you like with those. I'm just getting these paints out of the way. And I'm going to keep using this round brush for the shape of the flowers. So I'm just going to maybe start with, oh, you can see this one's kind of it's got some clots in it. That's the Cotton Candy pink. So some of these are a bit older, but I'm trying to use them up and get rid of them. And as you can see, the white is right next to this Cotton Candy. You can mix it up and do different shades for that same flower. And I'm kind of just using strokes to make the flower, and I'm going to kind of go around in a few different spots with that same shape, and then I'll come back with other shades to give it a bit more dimension. And I'm trying not to be real symmetrical with it. Kind of want it to be a little more natural. Okay, and then I'm going to take this Christmas red, and I'm going to move it over here where I've got a dry spot. Take some of the cotton candy, and it's giving a little bit of a darker shade, you can see, for adding some shades. And I'm just making strokes. Again, it's not any specific real hard and fast rule. Because this is a smaller canvas, I'm gonna grab a smaller paintbrush as well. Okay, so here's the one I was using, and that's quite big. The one I'm going to go to next is a little bit smaller. It's also a round shape brush, but it's going to help me give a little bit more dimension. Okay, then I'm going to get some lighter mixed up. This might also be an opportunity to maybe make some little tiny flower shapes, like some of that. Little sprigs sticking out a bit here and there. So I'm just going to kind of put a few of those. Next we'll do, I don't know, some that are vaguely look like that with petals. See, there's a few like that in here and up here. So I think I will use some of this fuchsia color to do that. So I think again I'm going to stick with this smaller brush. And I'm going to add a bit of white off to the edge here. And they're just little rough petals here and there. Nothing too fancy. So this here is, well, lavender really, is what it says. And those lavender flowers I did in this kind of shape up here. Do you see? So they're just kind of little dabs in a cone shape. So, let's see, I'm going to put over here, I'm going to do some of them. But first let's get a bit of dimension on these purple ones. So for the darker lavender color, I'm going to move some of it over here. And I'm going to take some of the green and mix it in Let's see, maybe I can use some of this one. Okay, so that's giving us a little bit of a darker shade, and it's kind of like a bit gray, so we will put that in, dab it to a few areas. Now for the yellow, I mean, they could be tiny little sprigs too, or just some rough petal shapes like this. And I pretty much did them the same way as I did these rose-shaped ones, where they're just swirls, you know? So I think I'm going to do some of the same. And if you look at this a little bit closer, you can see there's still some gaps that I need to fill in. So there's some white areas there and there, over here, up here. So there's a few areas that I have to fill in yet. And I might not do it with all flowers. Might be some of it will be petals too. I'm moving a little bit of that paint over here because I don't want it mixing with the reds and pinks that are right beside it. Okay, so let's see, let's start here. I'm just going to do maybe a few little sprigs of something here because there is a bit of a gap there. And over here, I'm going to do the little swirls. Alright, so I'm back to this little brush again, and just gonna start putting in some little leafy bits here and there. So next I want to put in some little dabs of yellow in the centers of some of these flowers. And this one is actually a watercolor script liner. It's a zero brush, and I know it's for watercolor, but if you look at the length of this brush, like, I love this one. I use it for acrylic as well. And it is so long. It's meant for doing script writing, but it's great for doing not petals, the vines, the leaves and stuff. So I kind of just swirl it around and make sure I get it fairly wet. Swirl it around in the green, and then I just kind of use it to put some of the little vines in, you know. And I think I don't like it down there, so I'm going to cover that up. So the way to cover that up is just to go back with your background color. Do you notice on the sample, there's some splatter on here, a bit of drops and drips and that kind of thing. If you feel like doing that with yours, with your heart painting, this brush is pretty good for doing that, but you can also use an old toothbrush. This is low Cornell, and it is actually a stencil brush, but it's nice and stiff. So, but I find it works best when you do it this motion, like this, but face it down to your painting. There's no paint on it right now. And keep it as dry as possible. So, what I'll do is probably take some of this pink color, the cotton candy one, and see it's got quite a bit of paint on it. I'm going to wipe some of this off and then do it. Let's see if we're successful. There we go.